Here we are. How's it going, everybody? Making sure we got everybody here. You can talk now, Freddy, Tim. I had some kind of a weird, mistake that I did setting up for the episode, to where once we had gone live, whatever Freddy and Tim said, you all were gonna hear. So I was like, all right, guys, just talk in the Slack. Don't talk, don't talk out loud. It's 5 minutes of silence. Nothing like preparing for a podcast with 5 minutes of absolute silence under a death threat. How's it going, everybody? We got a good group with us in the chat. It wasn't actually a death threat. Even if it was, I wouldn't actually mean it. Don't even know where these guys live. Nor do I feel like endangering my life to make it across the country. You know, as we're getting started over here, I got to tell you, the room right next to me is just covered in balloons. I don't know, 20, 30, 50 balloons. I haven't stopped and counted because tomorrow is my daughter's birthday. She's turning 6 years old. Today was our birthday party, which had me thinking, you know, I'm about to have my birthday next week. Everybody can throw your happy birthdays in the chat, you know, send birthday presents to, no, I won't give you my address, but I will say this much. I don't think I've ever had a Star Wars themed birthday, and I think it's about time. How about you guys? Freddy, Tim, have you ever had a Star Wars birthday? Tons of Star Wars birthdays? Putting me to shame. How about... A few? Well, like, fill me in. Like, what was it like? Okay, so like a lot of repeats of the Truce at Bakura. Oh, they can't hear you. Well, you know, we had so many issues with setting up audio this week. For some reason, all my audio everywhere was gone. But we'll get that fixed. Just a second here. Now, they were talking about their Star Wars birthday parties. All right, talk, Freddy, let me test. No, all right, I'll set up a new one. There's always something like that, you know? All right, try now, talk now. I promise this was working a little while ago. Let's try this one, see if it's working now. Talk. No, still. Who knows? All right. Well, we have Freddy saying there in the chat, thank you for OBS always throwing us some kind of a curveball. Anyway, my daughter is having a Disney Fairies birthday party, which, you know, I gotta admit, like, out of all the things she's ever cared about, this might be top of my list for things that I care about the least. You know, absolutely couldn't be less interesting to me, couldn't be more annoying. But, you know, in the grand scheme of things, not a big deal. We did go as Star Wars Halloween characters, Star Wars costumes for Halloween a year or two ago. Have you guys ever done Star Wars Halloween costumes?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I think they can hear you now. That's good.
I remember elementary school. I want to say maybe around 4th, 5th grade, I was a stormtrooper. And I was so proud to be that stormtrooper. It was insane. And then I look at the picture and I was like, oh, man, that was a really bad outfit. The ones that you tie up in the back. And
so you're not talking about like something that would legally get you into the 501st, not that kind of costume.
You know, they out of pity. Out of pity.
Okay. Tim, I was asking the question earlier, have you ever had a Star Wars birthday? They both said yes. I have never had a Star Wars themed birthday. I think I've had a Power Rangers birthday, a Spider-Man birthday, and those were just the last 2 years. No. Definitely a Pokemon birthday. But they were both saying they've had lots of Star Wars birthdays. Freddy said that's where he got most of his copies of Truce at Bakura. How about you, Tim? You were yes on the birthdays. How about on Halloween? Have you done the Star Wars Halloween costumes?
Halloween, not so much. I believe I tried to go as Darth Vader once, but the voice changer that the mask came with didn't work. It was all high pitched. So absolutely hilarious. Like,
hey guys, Darth Vader here.
I'm gonna choke you.
Give me your candy. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Darth Vader had the one up on us though, as far as having a COVID safe Halloween costume, fully masked. I think the only time I've ever done Star Wars Halloween was just 2 or 3 years ago. I was Han, my wife was Jin, and my daughter was Rey, which was not canon, not at all. not even remotely canon. The three of them never asked strangers for candy. Never went out for a night on the town, but we had a great time of it, that's for sure. How about you all? Let me know in the chat. Have you ever had a Star Wars themed birthday party? What was it like? Why wasn't I invited? Also, what was the best Star Wars, what are we talking about here? The best Star Wars Halloween costume you ever had? I guarantee you, none of you were the star of this week's book. And that's right. We are talking about Dark Force Rising, the second book in the Thrawn trilogy. I just know that Joxy's going to meme that. I just saw it. I just saw the meme. I just saw the GIF happening right before my eyes. We're talking about Dark Force Rising, the second book in the Thrawn trilogy. And we are, of course, talking about none other than the shirtless, buff, dark Jedi clone himself, Jeruus Sabayoth. If anybody's been Sabayoth for Halloween, we're going to go ahead and make you a VIP in the Youtini Twitch chat here. You're going to get the little golden diamond by your name, whatever color that is. Who knows? But I can't wait to talk about this. How about you all? Let's kick it off. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Legends Lookback, a show brought to you by Youtini.com, a show that's been described as the podcast you wish you could have listened to on your way to rent Caravan of Courage from your local Blockbuster, where we talk about all things Star Wars Legends, celebrating our rich EU history as well as diving into lesser-known Star Wars classics. I'm your host, Jared Mays, and today I'm joined once again by the legendary Freddy C himself. How's it going, Freddy?
It's going, man. It's going. I have to say, your intros are amazing.
I spend about as much time each week thinking of the 90s reference I can put in that intro as I do writing all the rest of the show notes. First thing in the morning, as soon as I wake up, I'm thinking about what it's going to be. Last thing I think about before I go to bed at night is what's the 90s thing I can put in there. Everybody, put me your favorite thing about the 90s in the chat or the Discord or the YouTube comments because I need more information. I need some more help. Legends Lookback, help wanted, as always. We are, of course, joined this week by our special guest, first time ever on Legends Lookback, but no stranger to Youtini, the Youtini community. We've got Taco Tim himself, Timothy Guthrie. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm super looking forward to this.
Glad to have you here. Couldn't be more excited. I got to say, Tim, I got a little bit of Legends beef with you. All right. Freddy and I are trying to corner the market when it comes to Star Wars Legends at Youtini. In case you can't tell, we started a Star Wars Legends podcast, and we were like, hey, we're starting video over here at Youtini. Somebody's going to be talking about Legends on the YouTube channel. Somebody's going to be talking about Legends on Twitch. It better be us. So we slid into Corey's DMs and all that good stuff, and 6 months later, and several almost firings, here we are, talking about Legends. Couldn't be more excited about it. But Tim, you start your own podcast. First book you do is canon. Second book, you guys are crossing over into our Legends territory with Revenge of the Sith. So, first of all, who do you think you are?
I
He's Taco Tim.
That's right, he is.
You forgot about Discord in your strategy, so someone's got to cover it. So let me be your official liaison.
Okay, that sounds official. You can be our legendary liaison. I gotta say, we've had some controversies surrounding the prequel and original trilogy novelizations, because I've heard several people refer to them as canon. On Youtini.com, on our timelines, you can find them listed as what category? Anybody know in the chat? Youtini Legends Lookback trivia, so we get started tonight. They're categorized as loosely canon, right? We just need hold on loosely canon. Gotta live some 38 special. You know that song, Freddy?
Yeah, I do.
I've seen them in concert 9 times. Anyway, that's beside the point. But as far as I'm concerned, they're legends. Pure legends through and through. They're never really going to be canon. But back when Legends was canon-ish, the novelizations were definitely the most important things. You see what I'm saying, Freddy? It's like they're never going to be fully canon, but at one point they were definitely legends.
Yeah.
We claimed them.
Yeah.
They belong on the shelf right back here with all the other Legends books.
There's only a couple in that group that can count on that. It's a rare breed, honestly, in Star Wars literature.
Absolutely. But you know what? Tonight's book is 100% Legends. We're not talking about 50-50, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. This is as Legends get, and I couldn't be more excited to talk about it. This is, of course, book 2 of the Thrawn trilogy, or as I like to call it, the sequel to the sequel to the sequel to Star Wars. Do you think that was the right number of sequels? Think about it for a second. I know it's a thinker. All right, we need a meme.
I think it's 4 sequels.
Freddy thinking. All right, so if you think about it, you got Star Wars, or A New Hope, as some call it, the new kids, and then you got Empire Strikes Back. So go ahead, Freddy. Bail me out.
Right, you've got Empire Strikes Back, first sequel. Return of the Jedi, second sequel.
Yep. And
then we've got Heir to the Empire, in my opinion.
Right.
Right, and then
it really reads as a sequel to Return of the Jedi. It's firmly Return of the Jedi through and through. I mean, there's a flashback to Jabba's palace, for crying out loud.
Yep.
True.
Okay, and that puts us up to how many sequels? This is the sequel to Heir to the Empire. So this is the sequel to the sequel to the sequel to the sequel of Star Wars.
4.
There you go. Absolutely.
4.
All right, well, that's going to go on a t-shirt. But you know what's not going to go on a t-shirt? The rest of this podcast. So I am excited. You know, Timothy, I asked you to join us for this book in particular, and that is because we had this whole thing with Jake recently rereading them. I know you're a fan of these, though. Jake also is heretical in saying he didn't like Dark Force Rising as much as Heir to the Empire, so he wasn't even going to get a chance to talk. He said he felt like the trilogy got worse as it went on, and you know, them's fighting words for sure. But you know what? We loved having Jake on the show. What's that, Tim?
I said, I'll meet him outside. We'll settle this.
Yeah, absolutely, we will. And maybe like, was it Leia and Alima Rar who had a lightsaber battle on top of a moving spaceship?
Yeah,
that's totally how I want to see this go down between Tim and Jake. Gotta say, Tim, I feel like Jake would probably win.
Probably.
He looks like a big dude. Couldn't be more excited to talk about this. But Tim, tell me, what's your personal history with this book? How much do you love Dark Force Rising? When did you first read it? All that good stuff.
Yeah, so I actually, for the very first time, jumped into Legends on Christmas Day this last Christmas. I read Heir to the Empire on Christmas.
Newcomer.
And then I read Dark Force Rising the day after that and finished it on New Year's Eve. I think it was 11:55 on New Year's Eve.
Oh, wow.
Some
people blow up the Death Star at midnight. You assassinate Thrawn at midnight. Spoiler warning. Sorry. All right, ruined it.
Happened.
Wow. Amazing. Tim, you want to hear something heartwarming? The first time I ever read the Thrawn trilogy was at Christmas too. I mean,
wow.
It's getting all Life Day up in here.
Yep.
What had happened was I brought a bunch of Jedi. What are those books called? Young Jedi Knights books with me on a Christmas vacation we took. It was a long, long road trip from Arkansas to New York where we were staying, and I blazed through them because they're pretty short books, and didn't really like talking to my wife's family, so I just read instead. No, they're great. If any of you are watching, you're wonderful. But you know me, I love my Star Wars books, especially when I'm on Christmas break. It's the best time to read, and I quickly blazed through them all. So I was like, you know what? Next on my list, Thrawn trilogy. Here we go. Just downloaded them on Kindle, read them right there on my phone. So, Freddy, was your first experience reading Dark Force Rising over Christmas break, or
summer
Life Day break, summertime?
It was summertime. I remember it clearly.
Isn't it always summertime in California?
It gets like we got like 2 seasons. Cold for us, which is like 50 degrees.
Tank tops and t-shirts. Those are your 2 seasons, right?
Yeah, basically. So I remember clearly being in the forest. I had a pack of batteries. I'm talking a big pack of batteries. I had a Game Gear, right? I had a Game Gear.
Like Sega Game Gear?
Yeah, I had a Game Gear with me because I was playing Game Gear. I had a parachute wrapped around like one of those parachutes they used to drop in World War II with like supplies. I had that with Luke on it, like the Barbie Luke, right? It was like the, big, right? He had a parachute. That right next to me.
I have no idea what you're talking about, but I'm gonna Google it after the episode.
This is exactly, yeah. We're gonna have to talk about this, but using the light from the Game Gear to read at night, Dark Force Rising.
Amazing. I love
That
it.
was my experience.
I used to have one of the Game Boys with the magnifying glass that like popped out 6 inches from the screen.
Yeah.
I think that's the first time my wife and I ever bonded was talking about how we both had those as kids. Let me know, did you read Dark Force Rising in the forest while being chased by Vornskers with your Sega Game Gear? Were there Vornskers? I think I inserted the Vornskers. Anyway, we are talking about the 1992 masterpiece, Dark Force Rising. That's right, I called it a masterpiece for sure. We're not going to give as much personal history and behind-the-scenes info on this as we did with Heir to the Empire. I mean, we could have done a whole show just about the behind-the-scenes on Heir to the Empire. With this one, there's a little bit of behind-the-scenes that'll come up as we go, but in particular, this one was published a year later in 1992, and the only related materials I've found that tie into this one, there's no 20th anniversary edition. It's, I would say, in the top 10, at least top 5 greatest Legends tragedies, don't you think, Freddy? That there's no 20th anniversary edition. You got like the Sword of the Jedi cancellation, and probably this is number 2. What else are the big tragedies of Legends?
I mean, there's other tragedies you can see in a different way, but this is a big one because you can tell it gets overshadowed by its older,
its older brother.
Its older brother, sister. You know, they just shine over it. That's the one everyone looks at. You've got the Thrawn trilogy. But Heir to the Empire is the one that just gets that boost.
Yeah, totally. I want to say in the chat a couple of great comments here. Oneil says that, can we get into this Barbie Luke more? She needs more details. She says she wants this one. So, Freddy, make sure I just called you Threddy that time. At least you're not Spready Freddy this week. You're Threddy Freddy. Doing some plumbing.
Freddy.
You know, she needs some info, so throw a link in the Discord when we're done. Cheryl also says, I love this, she had started reading Heir in Canada, finished it in Sweden, and was like, I need a bookstore, stat. And that's a feeling I can identify with. I got to find a bookstore. Mom and Dad, pull over to the side of the road. There's a bookstore. That's the way all of our vacations go if you're a Legends fan. Gotta say that the 2 related materials I'm going to be looking for in a bookstore that pretty soon are, or at least, like thrift books, the West End Games source book, which also came out in 1992 by Bill Slavisek. Totally not sure if I'm saying your name right, Mr. Bill, Mr. Slav, or not, but love your books, so can't wait to buy this one. I'm sure you'll get none of the profits because I'm buying it secondhand. And then also the Dark Horse comic adaptation, which I've been rereading in preparation for this show. I'm on issue 5 out of the 6. I couldn't quite finish it in time, so I'm on a cliffhanger here. There's about to be the battle at the end. Anyway, it was 6 issues, came from writer Mark Barron and penciler Terry Dodson in 1997. And just as there is for the Dark Empire trilogy, this was available in circa, 2010? Around that time as a hardback collector's edition. Either of you have this one? I gotta say, out of all the Legends things I'd like to collect, this might be top of my list to get the hardback graphic novel of the Thrawn trilogy. You got this one, Freddy?
Yeah, I have this one.
Of course you do.
This is my favorite.
Yeah. Man, those are beautiful.
I love it.
And they are a pretty penny online right now. Should have scooped it up from my local Hastings back in high school when I had the chance. But we are going to get into it at this point. Remember, folks, if you haven't read this book, it's about to be spoiler-heavy territory. Get out of the forest like you're on the run from the Vornskers. So if you haven't read this book and plan to soon, continue at your own risk. Are you ready, Tim?
I'm so ready. Bring it on.
That was mostly me just testing to see if your camera's working, and it's not. No, okay. Now you're caught up to speed. Awesome. So, divided loyalties threaten to rip the New Republic apart from the inside, as, of course, Heir to the Empire ended on the cliffhanger of Admiral Akbar having been arrested due to some political maneuvering by Borsk Phalia. All the while, Grand Admiral Thrawn continues to maneuver his way to regain control of the galaxy. Even though he failed the last time, he's still got a grander plan because he's Thrawn, His grand plan this time around, pretty basic, get more ships, right? After failing to capture the New Republic's ships at Sluis Van, thanks a lot, Lando, he's now recruiting smugglers and ship thieves to restock his garage. I almost read that as restock his garbage, which, 6 of one, half a dozen. Card and Mara Jade are relocating their crew after Thrawn went all Battle of Hoth on their Mirkor base for aiding and abetting Luke Skywalker. Oh yeah, Matt. Mara has a bad feeling about this because the Force and is able to get the supernatural heads up where Thrawn ambushes them. She learns from Card that he just so happens to have a lead on where to find the long-lost Katana fleet. Have you ever heard the tragedy of the Katana fleet? Of course, Card has a bit of insight on where this might be. This is, of course, an MIA army's worth of Old Republic dreadnoughts that someone, accidentally misplaced. Because, Jerry, come on, you only had one job. I specifically asked you not to lose the freaking spaceships. Anyway, Card isn't the only one with an idea of where to find the Dark Force fleet, however. Han and Lando end up as dinner guests of Old Republic Senator and Battle Commander Garm Bel Iblis, who helped found the rebellion, but stormed off on his own because he didn't exactly get along with Mon Mothma very well. Which is understandable, honestly, because, Mon Mothma doesn't exactly seem like a barrel of laughs with her dire news about rebel spies and Bothans. Anyway, Lando doesn't exactly trust him, but Han sure does because he's Corellian and also hates it when you tell him the odds. How'd you like my Han impression? I like 60% committed on that one. Tim gave me the look like it could have been better. Anyway, Mara's loyalties are pretty complicated at this point, but basically she just wants to get Thrawn off of Card's trail. She's pretty loyal to Card at this point. So she uses her Emperor's Hand ID badge to demand an audience with Big Bluey himself in order to offer him the Katana fleet in exchange for Card's freedom. He has to pass an art exam for Thrawn because, Thrawn's gonna Thrawn, He begrudgingly agrees, but captures Card anyway because he's Thrawn and he has bigger plans and is one step ahead of you. This makes Mara pretty jaded. Get it? Jaded. Worked really hard on that one. There's only one hope left for... Thanks, Freddy. All right, somebody... Cheryl's going to hate it. Cheryl's going to hate that one. That is to say, of course, that there's only one help left for her. She has to team up with the whiny, goody two-shoes Luke Skywalker, even though she totally wants to kill him. It's a good thing that she needs him too, because Luke's in way over his head, trying to redeem crazy old shirtless buff Force Lightning Fingers Jeruis Sabayoth. There's an awesome lightsaber duel, and the pair of young Jedi lovers escape and rescue Card. The book ends in a massive space battle, as most Zahn books do, with Thrawn ending up in possession of most of the Katana fleet. Yeah, yikes. Good thing there's one more book left in this trilogy, because otherwise, it looks like Thrawn's pretty much just gonna win, right? So, guys, help me out here. We gave pretty high scores last time around. I think Freddy and I both gave 10s to Heir to the Empire. Now, Freddy, follow me up. Do you go higher? You go lower? Equal? How does Dark Force Rising do in terms of following up on the Legends masterpiece himself?
Yeah, this one's interesting for me. I give this one, if I could give it the same, I would, which would be a 10.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what, this one is probably one of my favorites out of the trilogy, for sure. Nice. And I love the first one, right? The first one introduces everything, but there's something about the second one, and we'll get into it.
Okay. Tim.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. If I can't give it a 10, I'll give it a 10.3. It was so good. I love sequels, Empire, The Dark Knight, How to Train Your Dragon 2.
What? Wait, hold on. Where do you rank on Toy Story 2? Because I hate it.
So it's fine.
Okay, it's got it's got a Star Wars reference in it, but famously I hate it. Absolutely hate it. I like Back to the Future 2 though.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
You can quote me on this. Zurg is a knockoff Darth Vader. All right.
100%.
Okay, yep. So you say as a sequel follows it up well, maybe even higher. Bro Dameron says, bruh, How to Train Your Dragon series is baller, which I've never heard it described that way. But Bro Dameron, I salute you for that description. I actually think I'm going to go a little bit lower on this one. I would at least give it a 9, maybe as high as a 9.5. It's a very good Legends book. Heir to the Empire is very special, and I like Last Command more than this one. This one sags a little bit in the middle for me, but not much. Not much at all. I mean, seriously, I ranked this in my top 10 Legends books, so don't hear me. I feel like I have to apologize to it and make it up to it tomorrow by taking it out for donuts or something. This is a book that I absolutely love, but for some reason it just, maybe it's because it starts slow. Everybody's kind of picking up the pieces at the beginning. Got the same repetitious, like Thrawn is one step ahead of them in a space battle, which is cool, but doesn't quite hit as strong for me. And that being said, the adventure of Han and Lando to meet Garm Bel Iblis feels like Zahn didn't know what to do with them, and so he introduced a new character. He's a great character, but to me it felt like it was pretty obvious that Zahn didn't quite know where they were going, so he had to stick them somewhere and introduce somebody. You see what I mean by that?
I get it. I can see it.
And I've heard some gripes about Leia's the whole thing with the Nogri, and I've heard some people say they don't like that. That's probably my favorite part of the book, though. It's so incredibly tense. I mean, I'm getting sweaty just thinking about it. That, or maybe it's all the lights in here. I'm not sure. But tonight we're going to be talking specifically about the characters, and boy, does Zahn introduce some amazing characters in this trilogy. We barely scratched the surface with our Bothan fingernail last week in terms of these characters. This week we're going to be getting into more depth, and we are starting off once again with Mara Jade. So, Tim, it's a question that I had pretty early on in reading the book, and it's answered a little bit later on in the story, but, how much do you think Card actually knew about Mara's past? Well, what do you think their relationship is like? How much do you think he's upset when he eventually finds out, everything that's actually gone on with her?
Yeah, I don't know that he knows details, right? But he definitely knows something is there. And I think later on when he finds everything out, I think he's disappointed that she didn't maybe trust him enough to reveal that to him earlier on. But I could definitely see that he knew something and was just trying to be trusting, right? Like she's got these special skills, she's got these talents that he desperately needs. But yeah, I don't think he knew the extent of it.
Pretty interesting that once they were relocated from Mirkor, which is where all of the Ysalamari are, once her force powers are a little bit more exposed, his pet Vornskers, Strum and Drang, gotta love them. Gotta be top 10 Legends characters for sure. Gotta love Sturm? Man, this is hard for my Mississippi mud mouth to spit out. It's a German word, isn't it?
Strom?
Yeah, there you go. Freddy says it so beautifully. He realizes then when his Vornskers are like ready to tear her apart that like, oh, she must be force sensitive. So kind of illuminating more that there's more to her story than he knows. It makes sense for me that he would bring her on because she's pretty ruthless. She's on top of things, very capable. But like as a smuggling chief, I guess you get pretty good at hiring staff without like the most thorough interview process. I imagine if you're interviewing for Talon Card, it's more like, can you smuggle this shipment of explosives under the Empire's nose, more so than like, I got to do a thorough background check. What do you think, Freddy? How much did Card know about Mara?
Not a lot. And let's just think about the industry that he's in, right? As a smuggler, it's not really about interviewing like the traditional route, right? It's more about like, what's your cred? What can you do? Can you prove it? And if someone speaks for you, right, or if you can just prove it right on the spot, he's gonna get you. This person's an asset. Not a thorough background check. If anything, maybe a little bit, but even what she did was very covert, right? So it's not like he could really find anything, especially if it was scrubbed.
The big reveal with Card and Mara later in the book is that she kind of betrays him and kind of not. Her motivations are pretty murky. I can say murky. She's pretty divided in terms of who she's going to fight for. She ends up demanding an audience with Thrawn and uses Card's secret information that he confided in her as leverage to try to free him. So it's like maybe she had good intentions, and yet probably a big secret that he shouldn't go telling Thrawn, right? Who specifically wants to kill Card. And when she does, he offers her a spot back in the Empire. He's like, yo, if you want to do this, you better bring me those ships. And I've read this book a bunch of times, but even in my most recent read through, I was like, this hurts. It's kind of painful. Like, I trust her, and yet it feels a little bit like a betrayal. Tim, did you feel like Mara would betray Luke at any point?
She always had me guessing, right? I never knew. Even on the second read through, I was like, I really don't. I could see her betrayal being very real, and I could feel that, should it have gone that way. But also, there's some redemptive qualities about her, I think. At the end of the day, I think she's very much like Card in that she needs every asset she can get her hands on to make sure that she comes through okay. So I don't
Yeah.
know. Good question.
Yeah, she's definitely got her hands on a lot of pieces on the chessboard. I mean, I don't guess you can play multiple pieces at once, but she's certainly. I'm inventing a new game because it's Star Wars. Why not Dejarik? And I spent like a week trying to learn how to build my own Dejarik board. Was unsuccessful, awesome. But one of these days. I saw that about Tim's audio not working on that other scene. We'll leave it here for now. Thanks though, Cheryl. Freddy, how about you? Did you ever question Mara? You know who she was fighting for? Did you feel like she was going to betray Hard or Thrawn or Luke?
I always felt confused by her. And I think because that's how she is right now, right? In this stage, she's confused.
Yeah, sure.
She's getting her whole world is being turned around and inside and out, and everything is not what it was, right? Like wake up. She woke up, like she's waking up. You can tell, and you can feel that because even when you read about her and read what she's doing, I don't think she quite knows what she's doing. She might have an idea, right? Kind of like how we all have an idea when we're in high school that we know everything. But she doesn't. She's still finding things out, and she's still trying to discover who she is. Yeah. And that's what you see, and that's how I feel.
Yeah, that's a good point. She's definitely in flux, in transition. She's being pulled this way and that way, and her whole life on Mirkor has just been turned upside down. And Cheryl makes a great point. She herself doesn't know what she wants, and she's trying to figure it out, echoing Freddy's sentiment there. So that's a great point. Appreciate that. I gotta say though, with Mara, the incredibly satisfying moment for me, my most recent read through this time around, was when Mara force choked Thrawn. Because he totally went back on the agreement. He gave her 8 days to find the fleet, and instead, totally captured Card like the next day, maybe 3 days later. Definitely not 8 for sure. And she's like chewing him out, and Rook is right there. Her Thrawn's Nogri bodyguard, and she just straight up force chokes him. I was out on a walk with my dog listening to that, and when she force choked Thrawn, I dropped the leash, threw my hands up in the air, and just screamed, "Yes, get him!" And people were looking at me. It was amazing. Absolutely perfect Legends moment. And it was like, that was gutsy for her, because Rook, hey, if he's good at one thing, it's stabbing. Am I right? You know what I mean? Don't go force choking somebody around Rook. Unless it's Rook. Definitely force choke him. He's scary for sure. So I absolutely loved that. How satisfying was that for you, Freddy?
Yeah, it was like a sigh, like, oh, okay, finally. Like, she is as powerful as I thought she was.
Yeah, it says more about her power than it does, ever putting Thrawn in danger. You never really feel like she's going to kill Thrawn, right? Tim, you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, I think it also shows a little bit of her lack of restraint, right?
Okay. Very raw. She's very raw for sure.
Very raw. What is it? The phrase "Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned." It just gave it to him.
Absolutely. Yeah. Tim and I both have the Christian minister thing, so we're just going to be all tonight making nothing but Bible references and good like ministerial quotes. Things that feel like pieces of catchy good advice. It's especially good advice if it rhymes. That's what I always say. So try to iron that one out a little bit for next week. I do love that. She's very raw, and she, of course, is at a point where many of us know where she's going, right? Her story has been out in the open for decades. We're trying to do our best to go one book at a time without totally spoiling everybody, in case we've got some Legends newbies here, like Tim. You're pretty recent to all of this. And so for us who feel like Mara is safe, it's nice to see her do something really dangerous that makes us uncomfortable. Because later on in Legends, she does kind of come just like the Jedi mom. And at this point, it's pretty cool to see her do something that's surprising. And especially, I mean, the number of characters who force choke Grand Admiral Thrawn. How many books has he been in? Is she the only person to ever do it?
Yeah.
Pretty gutsy thing to do, right?
Yeah, she showed him for sure. There's no doubt. Like if he had... because I know, Chiss, if you look at some of their background, even back then, they were warriors, and I believe. But there was no way he would win a fight with her, I don't think. And I think that was the moment you could tell for sure.
If she's commanding a fleet of spaceships against Thrawn. You know, feel like, hey, he's probably the one who can do a good job at winning in that engagement, and yet, he, in this instance, is not much of a fighter. Some recent Thrawn books have gone back in and tried to show he knows some hand-to-hand combat. We see a little bit of that in Rebels, but not so much in these books. He's good at maneuvering and planning. I imagine he's really good. What's that game that Andrew likes to play? That he played on game night.
Minesweeper.
No. The one where you do the ships and you battle strategy.
Empire.
Empire at War. I feel like Thrawn's the only person who could beat Andrew at that. So, sorry, Andrew, but maybe if you just grow some red eyes, you'd be better. The other character who's really good at space battles is a new character in this book, Garm Bel Iblis. He, of course, is introduced, and Zahn has gone on record in saying that this was a point in the story as he was writing it where he realized he didn't really know what to do with Han and Lando, so ends up tying Garm Bel Iblis into the early days of the rebellion and showing the machinations that are kind of behind the scenes with the New Republic, as well as somebody who has worked with Phalia in the past to help investigate more of that mystery. So, Freddy, how does Garm Bel Iblis demonstrate the idealism of the early rebellion? Where did it go wrong with Garm Bel Iblis?
You know, I have to look at Mon Mothma to see where it went right. Right. Every time I think about this, I always have to think about how she wanted the Republic to be. Right. The New Republic, which was very, very much like Mandalore. Right. If you think about it, no weapons, no war. Very, very, empathetic with people, what their needs are, trying to get everyone, as satisfied as possible. The dream. And he wasn't quite the same, and it's hard for me to really pinpoint it, but it was almost like he just didn't have that path, that vision that she had, and that's why they just split. It was just two different factions, even in the same rebellion.
She's more of a pacifist. He's more of a warrior. Is that your take on it, Tim?
Yeah, I think so. I think that if he had wanted it maybe as badly as she did, he would have stuck around. And so I think there may have been a difference there. I don't know that I could have looked at her and seen she's hoarding all the power to herself. I've never necessarily gotten that vibe from her. But I could, I definitely see that he maybe wanted more piece of the pie. And he wasn't willing to let that go for the greater cause.
One of my favorite things in Legends is seeing how, and even in canon, is seeing how the rebellion formed. The early days of the Rebel Alliance is a lot of fun for me. I liked the plot in one of the Force Unleashed books, might have been the second one, where you actually have Mon Mothma hanging out, teaming up with Garm Bel Iblis and Bail Organa. Get some Bail Organa. I almost called him Gale. Sorry. Some Bail Organa love in the chat. Gotta love us some Bail Organa. You kind of see them teaming up to infiltrate and find out what's going on with the Death Star, which is a lot of fun. Which kind of had me aching to see him in Rebels. Tim, would you have liked to see Garm Bel Iblis? How many times do I have to say Garm Bel Iblis until I can actually spit this out of my mouth? Would you have liked to have seen him in Rebels? Do you think he would have worked?
Yeah, I think so. But I think a better place may have even been in Rogue One.
Okay, cool.
Is maybe around the table.
Oh, yeah.
Right before Jin takes off, and they go and do the thing, right? Like I think he might have been there. I'm kind of that we get that story.
So it's possible he could have been. We just didn't see him. He was just slightly off camera. I like that a lot. Cheryl has a good idea in the chat. She says maybe that's where they got the idea for Saw. He's an extremist, though. So Garm is definitely a warrior, has his own militant group who was doing these hit and run attacks on the Empire all these years, even though they're not a part of the New Republic. So there's definitely some overlap there. The biggest difference, though, is need more Borgullet. Am I right? That's the one big difference between, as far as I can see it, between Garm and what are we talking about here? Garm and Saw. What's up with these monosyllabic names? Freddy, you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, I really do actually.
Is it Borgullet? Is that the difference?
Borgullet.
That's pretty good.
Good.
So
I can feel you taking over my mind as we speak.
I really like him. Garm is probably one of my favorite characters, but he's he reminds me a lot of how I would probably be in a rebellion, just caught up in the war and the defeat. And I mean, you can imagine someone who gets peace after that. How do you do peace? That's
Sure.
kind of hard.
Yeah.
But I would say he's spoken for as Saw Gerrera. I mean, if you look at Clone Wars, for instance, when you see his character in there, he's very much that let's fight the warrior, let's fight the biggest battle we can, let's do this thing, right? They're true rebels. But I think about it a lot like the U.S., for instance, against Britain. That's exactly how I see him in that position.
Yeah, sure. And I think Cheryl's making a great point, about Saw. There being a big parallel there, with possibly him being the inspiration for Garm having been the inspiration for Saw, and reimagined, re-envisioned a little bit. I like that quite a bit. One of the things that is an interesting introduction for Garm Bel Iblis is the way that he has this history with these major players in the Rebel Alliance. And there's this big controversy going on between Akbar and Borsk Falia. Can I get an F in the chat for Borsk? We love to hate Borsk, don't we? He actually is probably one of my favorite Legends characters. I love just what a great foil he is for our idealists. He's all about the power. He's trying to position. He's trying to maneuver, and yet he has just a great storyline for many, many books to come in Legends. But Freddie, let me ask you this: Heir to the Empire ends on this massive cliffhanger of Akbar's arrest, which came as a result of Borsk's political maneuvering. So what's the difference, do you think, between Akbar on the one hand and Falia on the other?
Oh man, I mean, if I remember. Every time I read this part, every time I read about Falia, I always wish that I could just be placed right in the story and I could just give him a right hook right to the chin. Every single time I read about him, I want to knock him out. And
it's gonna be a fuzzy chin.
And I feel and I feel that way about this book too. I mean, you're just like, dude, calm down. Seriously, like Akbar out of all people. Think about it, bro. That's how I feel every single time.
Yeah, I mean, Akbar, he's so lovable in Return of the Jedi. It's like Akbar feels like all of our squishy, fishy uncle, doesn't he? And yet, Heir to the Empire portrayed him as kind of a jerk, didn't you think? He's like chewing out Han for not being in the military anymore. He's like, Han, you abandoned. I was gonna practice my Akbar impression this week, and it didn't happen. Maybe for next week. Earlier today, I was like, "What impression was I gonna work on?" It was that one. Yeah, I don't have it. It's not. It's not there. There it is. That's pretty good. But he definitely came across as a jerk in Heir to the Empire. He's like straight-laced military man, and he wants other people to play by the same rules as him, and is easily upset when they don't. Who doesn't want to play by his rules? Falia. What do you think, Tim, is the difference between Akbar and Falia at the core?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, Akbar will, even if he knows that he's good at what he does, he is in command for a reason. I think he will still set aside his self for the greater good, for the cause. And Falia definitely will not do that. No humble bone in his.
I'll say not at this point. Not at this point.
Point.
Yeah. That's a good Zahnism there. He says point a lot, especially at this point in these 90s books. Anytime there's an argument between characters, it is the apostrophe of later Zahn books. What's the thing that came up a lot in Chaos Rising? Indeed, perhaps.
Indeed.
Says those a lot. At this point in Legends, it's point. Anytime there's an argument. I really like Borsk for being a foil, though. Falia is somebody who is an important person because the Bothans have played such a massive role for the rebellion, for the New Republic. But the big key in all of this is he wasn't especially active during the rebellion. He swooped in to get the glory once the government is established. In my first read through, all the way through, I was pretty sure he was the spy. I just thought he was straight up evil. And we won't say too much about that for now, but at least by this book, it's becoming more and more evident that there's something else going on in terms of the spy. We've talked about the original characters that Zahn has introduced in these books. Let's talk about the legacy characters, Han, Luke, Leia, so forth and so on. A significant plot point in this book is Leia's trip to the Nogri homeworld, Honoghr, discovering the truth of Darth Vader's relationship with them, and Thrawn eventually tracking her down there and her hiding, and then there's the Wookiee Heir, and it's really tense. All right, I mean, I'm gonna need like 2 or 3 hours to calm down just from my reread. It is so incredibly tense. And it just leads me back to this decision point, and they reconfront it in this book. Han is especially peeved. Tim, do you think that Leia made the right choice in going alone to Honoghr, alone with 3PO and Chewie? That worked out conveniently. Do you think that she was too trusting, or was this the right move? Obviously, hindsight's 2020, but definitely bold, don't you think?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely bold. But I think when I read it through the first time, I had to remember who Leia was, right? And she's always been a character who has made the right choice, at least as far as I can remember and what I have read. And so, I think she has the more political mind, right? She's been doing this her entire life. And so knowing to come in guns blazing, or to come in with, her husband who is, all up in arms about things.
Yeah, Han would not be chill on Honoghr.
Not at all.
Yeah.
I think for her, I think it made sense to me. And if I were her, I probably would have done the same thing.
Okay. Freddy?
Yeah, I feel like that scene when she's sitting there, I don't know if it was a closet, I forget what it was. Thrawn's in the same room. Is like, I mean, I was holding my breath when I was reading that part. I didn't even realize it. Yeah,
let it out now.
And when he walked away, it was just like, whew. And then, but it wasn't like a sigh of relief, because she just realized, I just made a mess on this planet, and I gotta fix it. And she has no idea how to do it yet.
Absolutely, they're in hot water with Thrawn for sure. Of course, he discovers the Wookiee Heir, finds out that they've been hiding and abetting Leia or somebody involved with the rebellion and all of this. He's able to figure it out, even though he can't physically find them on the planet. There's almost a public execution, and then she finds out, of course, that there was a little bit more to the story. One of the big interesting wrinkles here it's the thing that stands out to me the most about this book whenever I reflect back on it. I remember some key points from Heir to the Empire. I remember like one thing from this book, and it's this entire scene on Honoghr, where the Noghri were Vader's secret bodyguard. They were his own private army, and now Thrawn has inherited them as his own private assassin force. And Leia's challenging why that relationship is the way that it is, discovers that there was a battle, and it's really interesting to think about the casualties of war, right? The fallout. The innocent people who were caught up in all of this, and that is that the Rebellion and the Empire are having a battle above the planet, and the debris rains down on the planet and ruins their ecosystem. What we've always imagined is what happens to the Ewoks, right? But this is, what's happened on Honoghr. We find out that Vader comes in, finds all the destruction, and offers them a deal. He will save their planet if they enlist to serve him. We, of course, eventually find out the rest of that story, which is that he was actually poisoning their soil in order to keep them forever on the hook. But how did this color your perception of Vader, Tim? Yeah, for me, at first, until I learned the truth of it all, it seemed like, maybe Vader is heroic from a certain point of view. We, of course, in the prequels, which come later than this book, of course, this is 92, we learn a lot more about Anakin. It's totally something I can imagine Anakin doing, at least becoming this world's savior, not so much the poisoning their soil part. Tim, what do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I did get some Anakin vibes of, he's not going to go and just brutally massacre a species, that's unfamiliar to him, I think, unless they were to do something brutally harmful to him. And also, I think that, he looks towards how can we use them, and he recognizes that they are strong and capable and very sneaky, and I think that he's definitely going to use that to his advantage. And so I could definitely see the Vader aspect of that, of, let's use this weak creature who has some strengths that could fit our cause, and let's just absolutely brutalize them. And knowing that they're going to be in a psychological state enough to know they don't have a choice but to serve. and their honor kind of demands that of them. I think it was a good play by him.
Okay, great. Yeah. I've been corrected by Bro Dammer, and he says it's a Clone War battle. So that's a good point. And I will say in this book, the timeline with the Clone Wars is a little bit messy. There's some information
Super
that
messy.
George is going to go back and retcon a little bit. So forgive me if I've got my dates wrong, but so does Zahn. Okay. No, I appreciate the correction there. It's a Clone Wars battle, not Rebel Empire battle. I did... My reread was about half the audiobook and half the graphic novel. So I've got some gaps for sure in my most recent reread because there's only so much time in the week with our weekly roundtables now. Freddie, you want to weigh in on this one, though? Did this color your perception of Vader? It's interesting to learn about Vader, even though Vader's not in the book, right?
It's funny because I was going to say the exact same thing that Tim said. The thing is, with Vader, he is still Anakin, just evil, right? The evil version of Anakin, in my opinion. And Anakin, you see a little bit as in, he goes to this planet. He doesn't really want to kill these guys. And then they kill all of his stormtroopers. And he's like, okay, I like warriors. I appreciate them. How can I use this with a Sith influence, right? Of, I, in order for me to keep my supply, I need to make sure that they depend on me instead of going the literally the opposite route, which would be the Jedi way of, let's make these people. You got to think about it. This too, they're pre space travel species, right? They're pre space travel species, just
right.
like
they don't
us.
have a way off planet.
Exactly. So imagine someone coming to our planet. We've got a bunch of martial artists. They like that, and then they poison our Earth. You got to think of it that way, and it's really intense.
Yeah. I will say, though, Freddie, with all the stuff that's happened in 2020, I would welcome alien invaders at this point. Like, aliens,
Vader.
Please come. Please come.
Aliens invader.
There we go. Oh, for now, Freddie's chiming in on the puns. We've talked about Leia. We've talked about Vader. Let's keep it in the Skywalker family here. Let's talk about Luke as well. One of the things that I absolutely love in this book, and I also find it a little bit cringy, but it's interesting to see Zahn himself trying to explore, for the prequels, what would a Jedi have been like before the war, right? Before the Empire, before the Dark Times. What do you think this scene in which Luke mediates this cantina brawl, how does that illustrate what Zahn is trying to show us the Jedi are all about, Freddie?
You know what? Give me a moment on this one.
We'll come back to you.
Yeah.
I find that this way of him saying, well, Jedi were not always warriors. They're peacemakers. They're respected in the galaxy. What do you think, Tim?
I think I felt just as confused as Luke was when confronted with this.
Okay.
Wait, what? What am I supposed to do now? No one ever told me about this.
Yeah.
But I see the it's tough. I don't know, man. I don't know how to put words to it other than I think this is probably the best way to show them being peaceful is making wise judgments.
Yeah.
And that was a sign of a lot of very powerful kings back in the day, and strong leaders is you base things based on their judgment and their wisdom and the way that they can read a situation. And so I guess Jedi being in tune with the Force ought to be able to make wise decisions, see clarity, speak truth in ways that should diffuse and everyone comes out all right. So I guess that's what he was trying to go for. But I felt just as confused when I read it of like, this is odd. I don't like it.
Yeah. The judgment reminds me, just the other day I was teaching about the story of King Solomon, who there's this famous story. You know the story, Freddie, where there's these two women, they bring to him a baby, and the two women are arguing over whose baby it is, because one of their babies has died. And so one of these women is claiming this other baby is hers. And then Solomon says, I've got a way to figure out whose baby. It's so horrible. He comes up with this way to say, I know how we can figure out whose baby it is. Let's slice the baby in half. And then one of the women says, like, no, please don't kill the baby. Give it to the other woman. And in that instance, I almost called Solomon Thrawn. Man, that's confusing. Blue and... All right. Who knows? Always got to have the Bible crossovers. Anyway, that is to say that he was able to identify who the mother really was. And this really reminded me of what Luke did here. He was able to discern the trickiness of this negotiation between, what was it, a bearable and a Rhodian? A bearable and a Rhodian walk into a cantina. Then there's a baby. It gets crazy. Anyway, it's one of those things where we find Luke exerting judgment and wisdom rather than just being a warrior. I don't even remember if there was a there was a lightsaber, but nobody had to get an arm lopped off, and so there's that. But Freddy, how do you think this showed Zahn trying to navigate what Jedi would have been pre-wartime?
So this is super interesting because at this point in time, we didn't have anything, right? There was nothing about the Clone Wars. There were nothing about the Old Republic.
Yeah.
Just ideas here and there. And nowadays, right? If you play certain, I think it's Star Wars: The Old Republic, you have a consular, right? A Jedi consular who is like a political aide, who helps ease tension in situations and uses, the other side of the persuasion, right? The persuasion to do the right things, etc. The counter to the Sith.
Yeah.
But
Luke's
back,
got the green lightsaber. Isn't that consular?
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's consular. So you go back and you think about this before, when Thrawn was writing this, what is the opposite of Vader and Palpatine, right? What do they do, right? They're fighting, they're killing, etc. What do they have to do? And he's got to imagine they're helping solve problems, right? They're the ones that are maybe heading something like the Red Cross version of whatever in Star Wars, right? Those are the guys that are the Jedi, not fighters, and just to picture that is very interesting because Tim said it. It's kind of like it's boring, but it's the right way to do it.
And it's really echoed. This judgment scene is mirrored later in the book with Jarua Sabayoth exerting judgment on Jomark, the planet where he's stationed, and his version of judgment is just force lightning. You don't agree with me? You get some force lightning, and you get some force lightning. And I know Joxie's going to make a gif of that, which is awesome. But it's one of these instances where we find Zahn setting up something later in the book where we find out that Sabayoth has a very different understanding of what it means to be a Jedi. His idea is like, hey, you've got power. Doesn't matter. Read their minds. Get the information. Make the judgment. Get them out of here. When do you think... Freddy, when do you think Luke realized that Sabayoth may not be my next Ben? May not be my next Yoda? When do you think he realized that Sabayoth isn't exactly going to be the Jedi Master that he's looking for to help him further his Jedi journey?
It's so funny to see the progression of this because it's literally how I think everybody would react, right? Imagine you meet this guy who is supposed to be, a master of what you are. And then you meet him and you're like, he kind of sounds crazy, but I don't really know him yet. And then you get to meet him more and you're like, oh man, this guy, I don't know too many of these kinds of people like me, but I don't feel like it's him. And you can just see him go through that phase. And it's kind of awkward to sit there. Like, I wonder what he's feeling. Like, oh, he's like cringy, and they always mention how buff he is or his chest, right? I love it so much. But, yeah, he's just weirded out. You can tell it's so cringy.
How about you, Tim?
Oh yeah, I think it's that moment they're talking towards the end, and he just kind of blanks out mid-conversation, and then tells Luke to go to his room.
He's like, "Get out of here! Leave me alone with my force lightning."
Like that for me was like, no, I'm done with this dude. There's no chance.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I was reading that in the graphic novel adaptation earlier, and I was like, I wonder if the book shed any more light on this because I feel like I'm missing a panel, missing a pane. Yeah, maybe it just shows that his clone body is breaking down and his mind can't handle it. And Luke is trying to grill him about tell me more about Outbound Flight, aka Zahn's like, please buy my book that I'm gonna write eventually. And he doesn't quite have all the details for Luke and doesn't really want to talk about it, but he mostly just wants Luke to go ahead and give him those Jedi babies, right? Which, oh my goodness, that's a scary thought, isn't it? But there's this dilemma that happens with Sabayoth where Luke and Mara have this awesome lightsaber duel with him because Mara wants Luke to go with him to rescue Card, and Luke, being the good boy that he is, wants to go help his friend, even though she totally wants to murder him. And then they end up, R2, I think, knocks out Sabayoth with the X-Wing's lasers. And then Mara's ready to decapitate the fool. And Luke, being the good boy Jedi that he is, redemption's kind of his thing. He's like, no, let's give him another chance. So, Tim, do you think, do you side with more Luke or Mara in this situation? Is he too dangerous to be kept alive? Or should they have just go ahead and ended him?
Man, I really could go either way here. I just hate the guy. So whether he's on an island to himself, left alone for no one to ever see again, that's fine. Or if you kill him, that's fine too.
Okay, so walking the fence here.
Yep.
Freddy, how about you?
It's yeah, it's strange.
Cheryl's team Mara. She's like, let's just go ahead and would you go for the head or the heart? Where would you stab him with the lightsaber? All right. Maybe that's not the way to go, but I don't even remember totally excited for the reread of the next book. I don't even remember totally what happens to her. I know that she faces off against Sabayoth again. But I don't remember if how he dies or whatever. So it's one of those things that for me it's like, well, if you don't kill him now, you're just gonna have to kill him later.
Yeah.
Or get an Ogre to do it or something like that. So expediency, and yet the thing that I love the most about Return of the Jedi Luke, which is very much this Luke, is that he believes in second chances, and that's certainly what he's doing for Mara.
Yeah.
He's showing her that he is not his father, right? That he doesn't just eliminate people who are in his way. You think that's right, Freddy?
Yeah. It's funny because Sabayoth is one of those guys. Like, if you could just lock him away in a place you could never escape, that would probably be fine. Just keep him there. Let him go crazy. He's gonna destroy himself anyway. But there's really no second chance for him, and I felt like there was going to be a second chance for Sabayoth, but you can see that Mara is starting to see like how good Luke is, and how he is not who this propaganda that's in her head, right? This is not right. Like, you can tell she's a little confused too, and
Yeah.
and she wants to do something else, and then she starts to see Luke, and I think it shocks her a little bit.
Yeah.
That he's so peaceful.
And for the record, Cheryl says decapitate Sabayoth because you don't want to ruin his chest and abs, which is so great.
Put my head on Sabayoth's body.
That is the Photoshop that we need. Where's Joxy when we need him? Well, we've talked about the good guys, we've talked about the bad guys, but we've got to talk at least a little bit about Big Bluey himself, Grand Admiral Thrawn. In the first book, we find that Thrawn is definitely up to no good in terms of his military genius. He's really good at looking at art in just the right way. I feel like if you gave Thrawn one of those 90s like seeing eye posters, what are those things called? The illusions, where you have to like cross your eyes in just the right way. He would be the first one to find the real picture every time, don't you think?
Boat.
He's the GOAT at those crazy 90s art books. But, Thrawn is definitely shown as a brilliant tactician in Heir to the Empire, but I feel like that's taken to the next level in Dark Force Rising. Tim, how do you see Thrawn's brilliance elevated even more in this book?
Oh man, just watching him, try to predict exactly where, the Millennium Falcon will be and when. And, this is a race to the end of exactly where we're going. The ability to just plan that far out, I think is pretty unprecedented. I mean, we see some of that in Rebels a little bit. He's this master manipulator. He knows exactly what he's trying to do and where he's trying to corner people. But this was like a whole nother level of just throwing darts out there for anybody else, and he's right more often than not. I think it is crazy to see how he could do that. And I wish honestly, I wish we got more of it. It's so good.
Yeah. It was shocking to me early in the book when you've got Card and Mara watching the destruction of Mirkor from an asteroid. And Card is totally resting on his laurels. He's like, oh, yeah, we're good. They can't see us over here. And Mara's like, no. We got to get out of here quick. And then later in the book, you've got Card you've got Thrawn finding Leia on Honoghr, leaving, and then coming back because he definitely found her that second time. And it's like, oh man, he is just too smart for them. Freddy, how do you see Thrawn's brilliance elevated even to the next level in this book?
It's so crazy how not only are they one step ahead, but if they get like even a half step ahead of him, he reads it's almost like he collects everything in his head. He replays it like 100 times every second, and he's like, wait a minute, they're talking about this guy in this situation. Wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. That's what's going on in his head. We get kind of that visual in the newer Thrawn, but back then you don't really have that. You've got Palian to kind of walk you through it all. But even when you think you're ahead, he just notices and he's like, nope, I know they're here. I have a feeling. And he just hones in on it, and he's going to go at no mercy.
I love when he was able to snuff out where Garm Bel Iblis was involved, because he was able to notice like the formation of the ships, and he said a Corellian commanded that battle. And he's able to figure it out just based on that. And Garm Bel Iblis ends up being a good foil for Thrawn, because he's the only, now that Akbar is arrested, the only military commander who's even remotely a match for him, which I like. But even then, Thrawn wins the battle at the end for the most part. Tim, did you have more on that?
Well, yeah, there was a quote from Card earlier that I think applies to Thrawn as well. Card's having the conversation with Mara Jade, and he says, we will never have to do something. We will choose to do something.
Yeah.
I think that's very true of Thrawn as well, that even if he is boxed in a corner or it gets a step wrong, he is right there picking it back up. All those calculations are running all at once. And I think that can be applicable to him as well, for sure.
Yeah, really, Card serves as the guiding light for Mara, even though he's morally gray. And he believes in her, trusts her, and I absolutely love that about her. So, guys, before we close it out, we've had a ton of fun with the characters tonight. Next week, we're going to get into the overarching questions. Questions like, what would you do with the Katana fleet? Where would you hide the Katana fleet? How do you think the Katana fleet accidentally got lost? Who got fired for that one? Also, we're going to talk about this quote from Leia, where she says that the New Republic is being held together with hope and crating tape. Is that just space duct tape? Probably. And we're going to talk about the fragility of the New Republic. It's going to be a blast. So, before we do, guys, as lightning round here, we close out the episode. What was your favorite part of the book? You can give a shout out to a character we didn't really talk about, a scene we didn't get to highlight very much. You just want to talk about, Cheryl's blasphemy or was it Heather's blasphemy and talking about burritos with Taco Tim on the episode? I mean, what's going on there? Tim, what was your favorite part of Dark Force Rising?
I loved every conversation between Leia and, I guess, the matriarch of the Nogri. I can't remember how to exactly say that word. There's a really cool paragraph where she's talking about the Clone Wars battle. And there's a line that says, and yet there was no thunder, as if those same gods were too angry even to shout at each other as they fought. And I remember being more frightened at the silence. And I don't know, that's going to stay a while, I think. That just kind of to never let it get to that point. And the fact that she could recognize that as someone who's never seen anything quite there. I just thought all of those conversations were so deep, and watching Leia learn more about this species as we were getting to learn about them, it really made me wish that things in Rebels had gone differently, because I want more Nogri for sure.
Yeah, you got Rook in Rebels, but really don't get into the Nogri culture like this, which, hey, if you want Nogri culture, this book's got it. We're going to Honoghr, getting our boots on the ground, we're hiding in their closets. Man, it was just a great quote, and that's where Zahn really shines in this trilogy. He's so great with these intimate moments, not just the big space battles, in a way that I don't feel like he's captured in his canon books. But that's just me. You're more than welcome to disagree. Believe it or not, I love Legends, so there's that. Now, what's your favorite part, Freddy?
Okay, so there's two parts. One of them is exactly the thinking about the battle that was over the planet. That always fascinated me because, first of all, I love Rogue Squadron. I love all the books. So just thinking about it, right? Thinking about the massive battle that was up there. And of course, these people had no idea that they were just going to kill off a planet and and ruin a race, man. And that was the thing that Leia realized. She was like, we did this. Like, this was us. We got to
Yeah.
fix it.
Yeah.
And she took it unto herself to fix. She had a responsibility. She noticed. And when it was when she was talking with the what is it, like the Maitrak, I think was what they call her, the matriarch.
So artfully said. I can see it written on the page. I just can't try to say it.
Maitrak, I think. Anyway, so she just hearing the story, because that's what they were, right? They're the matriarch, storyteller, leaders of the group, and hearing the story painted so well. Like I could see her, I could almost see it in my head of her telling it to me, even though it was not her. It was what's his face? Sorry, I forgot his name. Audiobook.
Yeah. Oh, Mark Thompson.
Mark Thompson's voice, yeah. But just I could. It was amazing. And then number 2 is the amount of times they talk about his chest is fascinating. And
Yes.
I was thinking I need to figure out how to come up with a Sabayoth workout plan that I can share to Youtini. So
Oh man, that
look
would
out.
be awesome. You got to grow a long white beard first, though. Oh man.
Yep.
All right,
coming.
Patreon goal, everybody. Do you want to see a Sabayoth workout fit? I can't even say it. Oh my gosh, so amazing. Can't wait for that. That's going to be one awesome Patreon stretch goal. Tim, you're our Patreon manager, so put that on the list.
Yes, right now.
I'll say one last shout out. I love the lightsaber battle between Sabayoth and Luke with Mara Jade. They're providing blaster fire from the wings. Pretty cool, because you just don't get to see a lot of Luke igniting the green very much anymore. You know, it doesn't really make much of an appearance in the sequel trilogy. And I was reading this in graphic novel form. Anytime he busts out old reliable green, you don't see the green when you're reading the books. So seeing it in graphic novel form was very, very satisfying, and then quite surprising when R2 ends the battle by leave it to R2 to just bring in the X-wing. This is
R2 so much.
Pretty awesome. Absolutely. So that does it for this week. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on this episode of Legends Lookback.